Hello there. Now, it's June the 19th. It is 1 p.m. It's a Tuesday. Welcome to the Weather Studio. I'm Clare Nasir.
And I'm Alex Deakin.
And this time every week we're talking weather, the nuts and bolts of weather. So it's not really a forecast. You can see loads of those on our social media channels. This is also, it's more about a curious meteorological mind. Things that are going on not only across the UK but also across the world. And we've got a brilliant programme for you today, haven't we?
Lots going on in today's show. We're going to be having a quick look back at Storm Hector because that happened a week or so ago. We are going to be looking at the jet stream. We're going to be talking pollen once more because yet again pollen levels very high across some parts of the UK. And my favourite bit of today's show, it's a bit of a game that we're going to play, Hurricane or Harry Kane. It's going to be great. It's going to sweep the nation, this game. You're really looking forward to that, aren't you, Claire?
Well, you're still on a high from yesterday, aren't you?
I am still on a high from yesterday.
Actually, we all are.
Speaking of being on a high, if you do like this show, give us the thumbs up below, please, and do send in your questions and your comments. We'll try and answer some of them during the programme, but if we don't have time, or if you're watching this later on, not live, then we'll always try and come back to them maybe in a show later on. So please do interact with us. It's your show as well.
First of all, though, let's head across to the Middle East. Some dramatic imagery from the last couple of days. This is the Middle East. So you can see Saudi here, the Gulf states here, Iraq up there, and that's Turkey. And this pink blob here is a dust storm. It's a huge, vast dust storm. So from that point to that point, we calculated around what?
1,000 kilometres. So at its biggest, at this point here, we reckon it would cover pretty much most of the UK. So most of the UK covered in a dust storm. Beautiful pink images here. It's quite complicated the way they conjure up these images. They take lots of different satellite pictures, different wavelengths, and subtract and add different colours. And the colours down here, the greens and the reds, that's cloud. But this pink is a dust storm that developed because of the Shamal wind yesterday.
And the Shamal wind occurs at any time of year, but particularly through the summer months, it's normally associated with quite an active, dry, cold front. And the reason why we see it across this zone here, well, it's the wind which is funneled in a northwesterly direction from the mountains of Turkey and Iraq, and it's funneled down towards the Gulf states because of the high plains of Saudi as well.
You get a low pressure here.
You get a low pressure there, so you get a real sort of, the bigger picture is, yes, you get a real directional flow, and it picks up a lot of dust and dirt, not only from Jordan but Iraq, and then down across much of Saudi.
A little low pressure here as well, which is why it didn't go straight down the Gulf and actually spread out more across Saudi Arabia. But it does have massive impacts as well. I mean, it looks beautiful from above as well, but got some pictures here to show you what it looks like from below. These are images taken on Monday morning in Kuwait. And you can just see how that dust really impacts on visibility. It really reduces...
Imagining just breathing in that dust, it must be absolutely awful.
30, 40 degrees as well. It's just really quite oppressive.
And not only that, mini dunes develop across the road network. So there's a lot of impacts, not only for transport, aviation, but also for health issues as well. And in fact, Shamal in Arabic actually means north, which is quite interesting, isn't it?
It's coming down from the northwest, I guess. Now, this isn't from the Shamal, this is from Afghanistan, but it's a similar kind of dust storm. This is probably a haboob created by a thunderstorm where you get that down gust and you get these walls of dust coming towards you. Colin Seddon took this, one of the forecasters here. We have forecasters at the various RAF bases around the world, and he took these a few years ago. This one's not quite as deep, but again, you can see that wall of dust coming towards you. Obviously, it has massive impacts on aviation, whether you can fly through that kind of dust storm.
It does actually look a bit like a movie set, doesn't it?
It does. It doesn't really look real, does it? And this one here is really quite dramatic. You can see how high it is, but they can go for several thousand feet up in the air. Just imagine that wall of dust coming towards you. Would be pretty scary, wouldn't it?
But Shamal is one of many sort of local winds. The Met Office, where we've named many across not only the world but also the UK. There's the Fern effect, which
it's a good one.
It's a good one, yes. And there's many others. And in fact, on our YouTube channel, there's a great explainer about different winds of the world. So that's quite good. I quite like that.
Our sister YouTube channel, which is really quite interesting. So you can subscribe to that as well. We'll put a link again in the description about that. There's lots of interesting graphics. And again, there, if you just go through that, browse through that, if you want us to explain something else, then again, put it in the comments and maybe we'll be able to make a video about that. But there's no video about this. This is a world first. This is the bit that you really want to see. This is the big game. Speaking of winds of the world, Harry Kane or Hurricane, this is the game that we're going to test you on now.
I love hurricanes, actually. I really do.
Well, hurricane is a bit of a loose... I thought of the name first before I came up with the game.
So we're not really talking storms?
No, we're not talking about... No, we're talking about winds of the world or footballers. So I'm going to test you now. I'm going to give you a name, and you have to say whether that is a wind of the world or it's a footballer playing in the World Cup right now, because the World Cup's going on.
Yes,
Everyone's got World Cup fever, haven't you, Clare?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So, okay, first one, start with an easy one.
Yeah.
Is this a wind or a footballer?
Right.
Etesian.
Oh, it's definitely a footballer.
That's a wind. That's a wind in the Aegean. The wind in the Aegean Sea.
Okay.
Camacho.
Oh, a footballer.
That is a footballer. Who does he play for?
He probably plays for Tunisia. Very sad today.
Panama.
Oh,
he plays
so we'll be
for.
seeing him soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kvist. Is that a wind of the world, or is that football in the World Cup?
It sounds like I don't know, Eastern
Maybe.
European footballer.
Denmark.
Oh,
But it is a
okay.
footballer.
Yeah.
It is a footballer. Levecce. Is that a wind or a footballer?
That's definitely a wind.
No, it is a wind. It is
Yes.
a wind. Hot wind coming out of Africa. Kamsin.
That's a tricky one. That could go either way for me. That could go either way. What do you think? Well, you know.
I know.
What do you think at home? What do you think? Okay, right, I'm going to go for a wind.
It is a wind, a southerly wind coming out of Egypt. And finally, Berg.
Berg is, oh, well, that's a German footballer.
No, it's a wind. It's a South African wind. But there have been footballers called Berg, so you can have that. I'll let you off with that.
Okay, see, you know, it was a bit of a curveball, but at the end of the day, we scored a couple of goals there.
Well, that's what you've done there. Keeping that football link going. That's very, very impressive. Feel free to create your own games like that at home. I was very proud of that. I thought it was
Now,
good.
we're talking about health impacts with weather, and in fact, we've got our own expertise here at the Met Office. I want to introduce you now to Yolanda Clulo, who's our health lead at the Met Office. And yes, it's that time of year where we're all sneezing a little bit, and she's an expert in weather and pollen. Please come in. Welcome to the show, Yolanda.
Just to let you know, I wouldn't have got any of those right. So.
Yeah, no, it was a tricky one, yes.
It's a good game, though.
It's very good, yeah.
Anyway, look at this poor wee mite, and a prime example of things that have been happening across the land over the last few weeks, because it's a very serious issue, isn't it, hay fever, and it's been affecting a lot of people.
It is if you're a sufferer.
Yes,
and
yes.
it's kind of underrated. I think it's the poor relation in terms of ailments. If you suffer from hay fever, it can affect everything: your mental health, your ability to concentrate. If you're taking exams, it's really significant. So yeah, it's a hidden ailment.
And it's grass pollen really at the peak at the moment, because there's different types of pollen.
Yeah, so there's pretty much something in the air all year round. We start forecasting about March, when the trees start coming into flower. Well, the trees most significant for allergy, and then we forecast right through until we see the weeds start coming into flower. But the main season for allergy sufferers is the grass season, which is where we're right in the middle of now. And about 95% of people with hay fever are allergic to grass pollen.
But interestingly enough, there's lots of different strains or strands of grass, different species.
Yeah, so in the UK there's about 150 different species of grass.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Because actually the grass pollen season stretches from May right the way through to the end of July, and that really doesn't bode well for people who suffer from grass pollen. But I'd like to be a bit more specific so we can plan ahead.
That's right. So when we're observing grass pollen under microscopy, it all looks the same: big, fat, round, boring pollen with one hole. So we're trying to differentiate between the different species, and we're doing a project looking at the DNA of what we think are the most significant in terms of allergy, with external collaborators. And then the hope is in the future we'll be able to tell people exactly which grass are in season and when, so that they can correlate their own symptoms against the specific species, and that might help with planting regimes in the future, when to mow, what to have in your garden, all those sort of things. Hopefully, that's the hope. Now,
there's no cure at the moment, is there? But there are things that people can do to try and alleviate at least the worst of the symptoms.
Yeah, there's lots you can do. I mean, the main objective in terms of hay fever is to avoid the stimulus as much as you can. So knowing what's in the air, where, local to you, that's specific to you, and trying to avoid being exposed. So keeping your home as free of pollen as you can. So not bringing it into the house on washing that you've dried outside, on pets. So give pets a good brush before they come in. If you can, sort of shower and wash your own hair when you get in from work. Yeah, so keeping the windows shut, doing the high peak times of the day as well, that's really helpful. And obviously, if you know what's in the air in advance, you can sort of take your antihistamines and your steroids, nasal sprays and all that kind of thing. So there's lots you can do to mitigate.
And speaking of what's in the air at the moment, these are the levels that we've got right now. These are the pollen levels for today, and the VH, they're very high levels. Why are the levels so high, have been so high across a good part of England and Wales for a number of days now?
Yeah, so if you think in terms of the plant, it's been absolutely lovely. It's been lovely and warm, lots of rain, all the pollen has been able to, it's been bountiful pollen growing on the plants, forming on the plants. And then we've had some lovely, dry, warm days with a gentle breeze just to lift that pollen off the plants, suspend it in the air, the level we're breathing it in.
So the weather is crucial, and the weather's just been, the grass has been like, whoa, this is brilliant weather, I'm going to make a load of pollen.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've seen really high levels of grass pollen.
And the Met Office has got a huge network of monitoring stations across the UK, which is the basis for the pollen forecast, isn't it?
That's right. So we run the only UK network, and we've got some really dedicated, mostly academics around the UK with traps on the top of their buildings.
Traps? What are those traps? Because they've got a proper name.
Burkard traps with a sticky rotating drum, and they literally mount slides and count pollen. They send all that to us, and we obviously moderate the levels according to what the weather's going to be over the coming 5 days, and that's what appears on here.
Forecasts we can go through Wednesdays, and actually levels are dropping a little bit.
So we can be right in the middle of the peak season, which is where we are now. But if there's some rain in the forecast, or it's a bit cool, or not enough wind to get the pollen off the plants, all sorts of weather variables can drop the level down. So that's where you'll see, even though you're right in the middle of the peak season, you can see levels go down to low even on a rainy day.
And you can find this forecast on our Met Office weather app, and in fact you can set up push notifications so it alerts you every day about where the pollen is, particularly if you do suffer from it, and I'm suffering a little bit today.
You are suffering a little bit. I get tree pollen, so my season's over.
Yeah.
I don't really suffer from the grass, thankfully.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
That's really interesting, and actually the season is still continuing, and we are expecting some warmer weather next week, which doesn't bode well if you do suffer from hay fever.
Yeah, we're getting lots of questions actually coming in. Thank you for all those questions about temperatures next week and that kind of thing. We'll be touching on that in just a moment, but thank you very much, Alenda.
Thank you so much. See you again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yes, lots of questions coming in. Please do keep your questions coming in. Also, all that advice, we'll have it on the Met Office website. There's links to that again in the description, and the NHS website. We partner with the NHS, so go to their website as well. Get lots of really useful advice. Sadly, there isn't a cure for hay fever, but there are things that you can do to help mitigate the situation. Let's have a look at some of the questions coming in. People suggesting...
Well, one of them is saying, how do you reduce your hay fever symptoms? And I like this one. You can put Vaseline under your nostrils, and that picks up on the spores, and they don't go up into your nostrils and make you sneeze. That's quite a good one. Or wearing sunglasses.
And not drinking alcohol as well. Some alcohols can. We've had a question in about alcohol. Dean Jones asked the question, does alcohol affect it? Yes, it can. So
it's that glass of wine in the evening where there's a peak time for pollen.
Try and avoid that.
Not so good. Not so good.
Avoid that. Now, actually, levels dropped off last week, because we had quite a big weather event last week. Storm Hector hit, and some dramatic images from Scotland especially. This is a temporary structure that was built for the Scottish Open. The Scottish Open, I think it's next week or the week after, so in preparation for that, look at the winds just taking it.
Can you believe
picking up that building. Temporary building, admittedly, no one was hurt, should point that out, thankfully, but absolutely destroying that building. From
I mean, it looked like something from Tornado Alley. That imagery, it really did, but no, that was actually in Scotland.
Hopefully they'll have rebuilt it. That was last Wednesday, of course, and it wasn't just big structures like that were affected. A lot of garden furniture was moved around. Now, we did warn specifically here in the Met Office about garden furniture moving around. Jessica Clark obviously didn't tie that trampoline down, but thank you very much, Jessica, for sending that image in to our Facebook page, because it was just unusually windy for the time of year. So we don't often get gusts of wind of 60, 70 miles an hour in June.
So it all kicked off midweek, didn't it? Yeah,
this was Wednesday, so it was last week. Actually, most parts of the UK had a fine day. This is the satellite image here. But you can see this head of cloud out in the Atlantic. That is Storm Hector, really developing, intensifying, just an area of low pressure at this stage. But as we run through the last 12 hours of Wednesday, really, the storm heads its way to the north of the UK. Just look at the number of isobars. Now, it's the jet stream, that fast-moving ribbon of air, that's really picking it up and intensifying it. These are the winds at low levels. Just look at them barreling into the west of Ireland. And it was actually Met Éireann that named this storm, but then we did issue an amber warning for Northern Ireland as well. How high were the winds in Northern Ireland?
The winds in Northern Ireland peaked around 64 knots, so it was record-breaking for June there. That's 74 miles an hour, so that's violent winds. In fact, the winds were stronger across Scotland, but they didn't break any records there. So Taybridge recorded a wind of 83 miles an hour, so only a couple of miles an hour.
It wasn't far off their record for June. Interesting, Scotland have had stronger winds in July, which is
but it was probably a real shock shock to the system, Alex, if you think about it, because they've had some record-breaking sunshine and high heat there over the last few weeks. They've had such a stretch of dry weather, and then this hits.
Yeah, it was quite
heavy rain
change.
As well as those strong winds.
Quite a dramatic change. And the reason we saw the change was because of a change in the jet stream, position of the jet stream. I talked about it earlier, that fast-moving ribbon of air high up that tends to drive low-pressure systems. There's always talk about the jet stream in the summer months because it has such an impact on the type of summer that we get. I've got a good infographic to show you now about how the jet stream affects our weather. And when the jet's like this, moving to the north of the UK, well, in summer this typically brings fine, settled weather because jet stream drives low pressure systems. Most people know about that. But what people don't often realise is there's two sides to the jet. There's a warm side and a cool side. And it's that difference in temperature which helps to drive the jet along. The stronger the difference, the stronger the jet is.
And during the last few summers, we've been really desperately trying to push that in our minds, that jet stream northwards. But it has been across us or to the south. So we've been getting a lot more of the wet weather. This year, though...
It's been like this for the past few weeks, generally. It has been like this, yeah. So the weather tending to go up towards Iceland or Scandinavia. And this is the opposite position. So sometimes the jets are right across us, driving low pressures like last week, but often it's to the south of the UK, so we're on the cool side. Temperatures can never get really, really high, and often that will throw low pressure systems and therefore bands of rain our way.
But the big question is,
what is the big question?
What's going to be happening over the next few days? Where is the jet going to be and how is it going to influence our weather? Are we going to be seeing some higher temperatures again?
Well, that was a schematic, but now let's look at the actual forecast. This is data coming straight out of the Met Office supercomputer, and this is the forecast. Well, this is today, and this is the jet stream where it's positioned today. So you can see it's just to the north of the UK. As we run through the next 24 to 48 hours, it does take a bit of a dive down across the UK. So that will induce some wet weather on Wednesday, and also temporarily put us on the cool side of the jet. So it will turn a little fresher on Thursday, but as we run through now into Friday and the weekend, just look, that arm of the jet weakens and the main forcing of the jet stream again goes back to the north of the UK. So we're back in that other scenario where we could potentially see some warmer conditions across the UK and more settled weather. And that does look as if it's what we're going to see. If I take the jet stream off now and just put the pressure pattern on and run through the same sequence. So again, this is the same sequence of weather, but just looking at the pressure pattern rather than the jet stream. Then you can see actually that high pressure is going to dominate across the UK. It's not actually playing. Oh, no. There we go. We're going to come out of it.
But that's
by the magic of television, we can put it back in now. And if we put it back into play, it should be playing now. There we go.
Oh, here we go.
So here we go. So that's the low pressure. That will bring some rain on Wednesday. That clears through. High pressure then building back in. You can now imagine this is Wednesday to Thursday. As the high comes back, as the jet stream moves back further north, the high pressure establishes itself. And if we put on the temperatures, the greens are the cooler conditions, which arrive on Thursday. But just look, as the high builds back in into the weekend, let's zoom in and look at that. The temperature's backed on the rise, so that by the time we get to Saturday, Sunday, the weekend, that high pressure, well, could bring some warmth back to the UK, and the potential, notice these orange colours here, that could move back further north as we go into next week.
So we're talking sort of numbers-wise, weekend it could rise to the low to mid-20s. That's the forecast at the moment. But into next week, should we give them a magic number?
Do you think it could?
Yeah.
Do you think there is the potential? You say it.
30.
You just said it. You just said it. It could reach 30 degrees.
But the most important thing about this, we are likely to have a really nice sunny weekend. There should be a lot of sunshine around, and certainly more so drier weather with a light breeze away from the far north of Scotland. So, as I said, this is not it's not really a forecast we're talking about here. However, on our social media channels, we do issue forecasts every day, updated 4 times a day for the UK weather, but also our 10-day trend. Yeah,
tomorrow, Wednesday, we do a 10-day trend forecast, so we'll be really focusing in on this potential warm spell of weather as we go into next week. So that's the 10-day trend. That comes out on YouTube at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We do it every Wednesday. It's also on Facebook as well. That's, again, more of a broader picture looking at meteorology and looking at the trends into next week. So we'll definitely be touching on this potential warm spell. So tune in to that.
Another question coming in, will there be any thunderstorms with these high temperatures? Well, actually there are the risk of some thundery showers across western parts of Scotland tomorrow as that front pushes southwards. It isn't necessarily associated with those high temperatures, although we have seen that before. Watch this space, check out the 10-day trend, and we'll tell you about...
That is always one of the risks. As temperatures build, the humidity builds, you've got that extra energy from the temperatures, and that could create thunderstorms. So that may well be a factor, but again, it's something we'll be having the detail on over the next few days. And
they're also asking, Scorpion John 19 is asking, will we break any records next week? Well, that's something very difficult to forecast. Forecasting extremes is almost impossible, but currently the trend is for a lot warmer weather coming our way.
Yes, and 30 degrees, there's nothing unusual about that in June or into July either as well, so there's nothing exceptional about that at the moment, but obviously we'll be keeping our eyes very well peeled. Thank you for all your questions, thank you for all your feedback. Please keep them coming, even if you're not watching this live. As I said at the start, please like us, press the thumbs up button if you do like it, and obviously this is only the third time we've done this, so give us any feedback, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Please keep that coming in, and we'll try and tune the show to maybe talk about subjects that you're interested in, but yeah, your comments are really welcome. Watch it every week, every Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
We'll be here next week. I think it's you and Aidan next week, actually.
It may well be.
All-male star.
I'm not sure what he's going to think about Harry Kane or Harry Kane.
Are we doing it again next week?
I think so.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's up to you. Let us know. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you Tuesday, 1 p.m. next week.
Thanks for watching.